All right, we talked a little bit about base e in a previous video. And base e, well, e is just the natural number. So let's come to our calculator here and notice, like I said earlier, we have an ln function, which means log base e, but notice above it in blue, I have the e to the x. So let's look at that. If I make my value 1, then I'm just looking at the value of e, which is a constant. It's 2.718, blah, blah, blah. E is an irrational number. I know here it looks sort of like it's having a pattern, but it doesn't. It's not. It's irrational, just like pi. So our calculator also has pi. There's our irrational value of pi. E appears again on your calculator somewhere, if I'm remembering correctly. Well, I don't see it, but I know it's there somewhere. But we can always use e to the x and make our value 1 if we need to. So here's e, it's a constant. It comes from this. So let's look at this graph of, or not the graph, well, we can look at both actually. So if I take 1 plus 1 over x, and then I raise that whole quantity to the power x. If I go into my table, so I'm going to go into my table settings first, start at 0, count by 100. So delta means how I'm changing. So start at 0 and then count by 100. And now I'm going to look at my table, so second graph to look at the table of values. Well, so if I put in 0, I get an error. That's because I would divide by 0. Put in 100, I get 2.7048, etc., etc. Notice that we're getting closer and closer to an asymptote. And our values at some point are going to look a lot like our value of e. So if I look at my graph, so I'm going to take my window and I'm going to go from, let's say, 0 up to, let's say, 100,000. And then I'll count by 10,000s. Okay. So even from the beginning, I look asymptotic. And now let's go in and also graph our value of e. So I'm just going to graph e to the 1. And notice that those are the same things. So somewhere mathematicians along the way noticed this, that as x went to infinity, this value got closer and closer to this constant, and they just named the constant e. So as x goes to infinity, the expression goes towards 2.7, which we call e. All right, so you can read more about it down here. E to the x is just my exponential function with my base of e, so I've got 2.7. So that means when I put in 1, what I get out is e. If I put in -1, I get 1 over e. It's just another number. So it acts the same as any other exponential base.